Welcome back, and we're discussing monsoons and its impact on growth, inflation, crops, and the GDPs, etc. Mr. Hussain, this one is to you. And I was reading a CRISIL report which says that the last year we saw agriculture sustaining more than 3% of growth is what we saw. And on that base, another 3% of a growth is what they're expecting in this year as well. Would you agree with that number?
I think that will be achieved because if September rains are good, then we are going to have a good Rabi crop. And therefore, I think we should be able to get 3%. We should remember is not a very optimistic or a very satisfactory number. We should at least achieve 4%.
All right, that point is well taken. Mr. Devendra Sharma, this one is to you. So while not all crops have seen dismal numbers, but we clearly have seen decline come in for cotton. The core cereals are slightly down. I mean, most of the commodities have seen lower cropping, but the major has been for cotton. Pulses seems all right. Oilseeds in some parts is great, in other is a bit of a concern. But if you had to keep an eye on what crops would you be looking at? And the other thing is, do you think government has been doing a good job of tackling inflation? Because we've seen import duties being cut for edible oil, pulses. There have been various steps that the government in any case has been taking.
Well, that is where the problem is, that the inflation is not only a reflection of the domestic production, but also a reflection of what happens with the import-export policy. We all know that the decision to allow import of pulses at a time when we're going to have the crop coming into the market is something that is going to hit farmers. So that is, I think, equally important. And we have already seen prices declining for pulse growers. And, I think that decision to coincide the imports at the time when the production is going to be in the market is something that the policymakers should have avoided. And if you look at the other crops also, as far as the trade part is concerned, but the other part is that you mentioned the point of oilseeds. Oilseeds seems to be perfectly, on a right trajectory now. There's no problem as far as the pulses is concerned. Cotton, the area may have come down a little, but I don't see that this should be creating another crisis in prices shooting up. And in a way, what seems from this situation today or from the table now, I think is that we are very comfortable as far as inflation is concerned. We should not be unnecessarily worried. But I see a lot of panic being created by certain agencies that, we might see an inflation rise and so on, and the productivity or the growth rate in agriculture would decline. We have seen in the last 2 years, it is agriculture which has been the mainstay of the economy. It is agriculture which has kept the economic ball rolling. And I think let us hope that agriculture would stay on that mode in the months to come.
Okay. Mr. Hussain, even as July was minus 7%, August is minus 27%, might end up 29% on the lower side. Even then, you guys are not really alarmed, or you don't think that it is going to do much damage. Is it because the monsoon has happened at the right time, at right places, whenever it was needed, and these numbers perhaps is not something we need to react to too strongly?
Clear that monsoons, when to say that they came up at the right time, at the right moment, I don't think that will be fair, because we have seen July being hit at a time when the crops needed water. We have seen August also suffering on account of the deficit that we have seen. But I think in totality, when we look at the crop season, the message that is very clear from this is, instead of panicking about the rate of inflation, I think we should be panicking more about the forecast, which do not provide a distribution picture clear to us.
Sure.
I think that is what is more important. And I think farmers are more worried on that account, because when we say we are going to have 100% plus or minus 9% or whatever the forecast, and we have been saying that for the 3 years now, we have had a good monsoon season. Yes, good as far as the average is concerned, but lots of areas, lots of pockets have seen deficit rainfall hitting them, and also regions staring at a drought-like situation. For instance, you mentioned about Gujarat, we know Karnataka, we know
right.
Even in Northeast, we have some pockets which are badly affected because of the lack of rain. So the point here is the meteorological department also needs to improve its working to give us a picture which is very clear as to what the distribution pattern of the rainfall that
absolutely.
we normally talk about
Yes.
as the monsoon.
Mr. Hussain, your final words as well on what really needs to be done in this kind of a situation. Should we be cautious, concerned, or there is still time? Mr. Hussain, you're on mute.
There are several parts of India, for example, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, where the deficiency is going to have an impact on production of rice because most of these areas are rain-fed. And the farmers do not have irrigation facilities, unlike Northwest India, where farmers will end up spending more, but they will still save the crop. That is not the situation in Eastern India or Telangana, etc. So there will be some impact on production, but it depends what happens from now onwards. It also depends on that. So I think some concern would be there in the government, but we have seen that during years of drought, the production has not really gone down very drastically in the last 5 years. So that gives some satisfaction.
Well, it sure does, and that is for the Asia's third biggest economy, and we are the biggest exporter of rice, top importer of edible oil as well. And so there are some concerns that we're looking at in numbers, but as our experts say, this is just too early right now. Let's wait for the final number in sense of monsoon and the crop and the sowing, etc. as well. But we are a bit concerned right now about the water reservoirs, yields, and the rabi crop going ahead as well, and that would really depend on September going forward. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Commodity Champions. Many thanks for watching. The last week has been eventful.